Greetings to all present here, and I hope you all are safe and sound in these uncertain times. Today, I am here on behalf of IEEE Women in Engineering MUJ, and we bring to you the second day of the Management Development Program on the role of data science and management. I feel immense pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker of the day, Dr. Parag Kulkarni. Dr. Kulkarni is an author, innovation strategist, and IT thought leader, and is currently working as the advisor and the chief scientist at Ionolation Research Labs. So, without further ado, I hand over the stage to Dr. Kulkarni.
Okay, very good evening, dear friends. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, it's
Yes, sir.
perfect.
Okay, shall I share my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
just the F5. Yes, it's fantastic.
Oh. So, dear friends, today I'm going to talk about AI and machine learning in action for social good. I will try to share my experiences where we have been instrumental in applying machine learning or artificial intelligence in the applications which are targeted towards social good. So let me start going. Okay, these are some of my books. There is reverse hypothesis machine learning, artificial intelligence, reinforcement and systemic machine learning. AI is one of the best-selling books, and more than I think 10,000 copies are sold and is a reference book for more than 50 universities across India. These are other books I have written, and most of them are available. There is another book, Knowledge Innovation Strategy, which is another bestseller, which is forward and endorsement by Ratan Tata and Dr. F.C. Kohli. Dr. F.C. Kohli is basically my guru, and he passed away in last December, last November, 1 year back. Anyway, let's get going. So what is AI? Basically, I think all of you are aware of that, and I read that most of you are working in that. But still, I will like to introduce it in non-conventional way. I did my PhD at IIT Kharagpur, I think now more than 20 years back. And when in 1996, around 1996, I was at IIT Kharagpur, I was pursuing my PhD. We were staying in BC Roy Hall, Bidhan Chandra Roy Hall. And by the way, IIT Kharagpur is one of the biggest campuses in India, more than 2,300 acres. To give some sort of idea, probably all of you know that, but it is almost 5 to 6 times of IIT Bombay and almost 20 times of CMU. So it's a pretty big campus. And anyway, nothing to do with the size of the campus. I just giving because it has some linkage to this very first story. So I was pursuing my PhD and under one of the supervisors, I had two, he made a research group. There was Shama Prasad Mondal and Rohil Muktibodh in my group. Shama was BTech computer candidate. Rohil was MTech student. And we were trying to do some work. Very interesting work, very good. It was going quite nicely. But there was actually one problem, one worry which was always used to face me. That there was one person, one student, Divendu, who was pursuing PhD under the same supervisor for last 8 years. And I was always worried कि मेरा Divendu ना हो जाए. So I was a bit careful and trying to get papers done. I got a couple of papers in IEEE transactions. And one fine day I was standing outside BC Roy Hall. And if you know, IIT Kharagpur, I already told you it's a big campus, and outside BC Roy Hall, there is some vacant space. And a grass cutting person was cutting the grass with the sword-like device. So he was cutting the grass with the sword-like device. If anyone has visited West Bengal, they must have observed it. I think the situation might have changed because I didn't visit. I haven't visited IIT Kharagpur for last almost 5-7 years. So Shama, I was trying to tell Shama that, okay, get this load balancing stuff done. Let's use that parallel virtual machines and you get these results and we are done. वो ध्यान ही नहीं दे रहा था. मैंने बोला यार तू तो एमटेक करके बीटेक करके चला जाएगा, ये बंदा भी एमटेक करके चला जाएगा, मैं यहाँ रहूंगा दिवेंदु की तरह. But Shama was not ready to pay attention. He was looking at that person who was cutting the grass. So finally, मैंने बोला कि it was not a time to offend Shama, who was a very good coder. So I said, okay, Shama, क्या कहना है? तो Shama बोली, चल, let's go to that person. We went to that person. And Shama asked that person, can you come with us? वो बंदा बोला, oh, he was perplexed. He said, how can I come with you? I get 65 rupees a day, that wages or something like that. And I can't come with you. So Shama pulled 100 rupees note, gave it to him, and we took him to BC Roy Hospital. We took him to orthopedic surgeon. He got x-rays of the right hand of that person. And he concluded that that orthopedic surgeon, because of the chronic pressure applied with the right hand, there is a possibility of permanent damage to the right hand of that person. So Shama said, yes, I wanted to say the same thing. The design of the grass cutting sword is not right. And what Shama did, Shama, in next 1 month, designed a portable grass cutting machine. There's nothing great deal about that, but it is very cute design. It was a hydraulic type of thing. There was a lever, and you can press that lever with the thumb. There used to be blade under. There were blades underneath, and if you press that lever, the blades will cut the grass underneath and will push in the beam. Here's some battery or stuff which can measure the pressure. And if the pressure applied or required pressure increases beyond certain level, it will give the alarm. And in my opinion, that was the first AI product I have seen. Why? Because what is an intelligent agent? Intelligent agent is something that can sense the world and that can act on the world to change the state in order to reach to the goal state. That's it. So if you look at it, it has sensors, it has actuators, and there was a small learning mechanism. There was a rule type of thing, which will be very simple machine, which can give that alarm. So actuators was giving alarm. So there were a number of actuator things were happening. And I was amazed by that product. And even that product got few awards also. Even Shama invented, interestingly, if you have visited IIT Kharagpur long back, there used to be cycle rickshaws. Those used to take you from railway station to IIT Kharagpur, IIT campus. And that person used to pull that rickshaw most of the time because the roads were not good. And so one fine day he found that that person is making too much of efforts. So उसने वो रिक्शा वाले को बोला कि यार उतर जा. That बंदा बोला कि यार क्यों रुक. And उसने उसको पीछे बिठाया. And Shama was a very strong guy. And he tried to actually pull that cycle rickshaw. And he realized that it is not balanced properly. Then he said, Parag, can you try it? I said, yaar, tujhe karna hai kar, mujhe kyun khich raha hai? But he was not adamant. Again, so I tried it. And I realized wo ek hi disha mein ja raha tha continuously. And then he devised an intelligent balancer which can balance that. And interestingly, efforts required reduced substantially. And if you look at it, that was again a small version of AI product. So I call it what Shyama was thinking is a thinking in AI way. And if you are actually looking at the products, objects, whatever it may be you want to do, entrepreneurship, some business opportunities, probably it's required. Actually, I thought that Shyama will do a great. There will be a lot of products, those can change the world, and because all these products are social good, in a way can be used for social good. Can those be called as AI in action for social good? Let's find it out as we move ahead. But anyway, Shyama got opportunity, went to Microsoft Redmond Hills, joined that. Rohil went to AT&T Bell Labs and moved to US. I was very fortunate to complete my PhD in 3 years, not like Dibendu, and came back to Pune. And no product actually gone into the market. So basically, what is AI? AI is embedding intelligence and abilities into machine so that machine can exhibit intelligence for which human being is known for. And all of you know the Turing test of intelligence. You're getting response from the two rooms. One room there's a machine, one room there's a human. And if you could not distinguish whether the response is coming from machine or human, then it has cleared, the machine has cleared the test of intelligence. So I always think of, I'm even writing a book and couple of things on creative AI, a collection of processes, natural or technological, which are capable of achieving or simulating behavior, which if exhibited by humans would be deemed creative. So that is, there could be a similar creative test of intelligence. So when I started thinking what could be the creative test of intelligence, I thought there's a book by Margaret Bowden, The Creative Minds, a wonderful book. I think worth reading book by any AI researcher. So she has classified creativity into two types, psychological creativity and historical creativity. What is psychological creativity? You are doing something better than what you have done in the past. And what is historical creativity? That you're doing something creative which no one did in the past. Anyway, basically AI is a thought process. This is the idea how the intelligent agent work. There are actuators, there are sensors, there's a percept sequence, and I think every one of you know it. And there is actually one important aspect is reinforcement machine learning. When situation is dynamic, things are changing continuously. We have to adapt to the situation. And human being is really good at doing that. We are known for that. How we do that? So reinforcement learning tries to mimic that performance. And what the idea is that basically if you're in a new scenario, you'll try to use whatever knowledge you have. Simultaneously, you will do some sort of trial and error. So you will try out something and you will get some reward or penalty from the environment. Suppose you're in Japan and you know how to behave in India, and if you behave in the same way and you thought, okay, everyone is greeting, you say, okay, it's working, wonderful, you got rewards. But suppose there is some etiquette you follow, like you give a tip to a waiter or something like that, and then he is get offended, you got penalty. Anyway, so that rewards and penalty you accumulate. There's a value function. You try to maximize the value function. That is basically. And second important concept of today's discussion is social good. What is social good? Answering a social question. A social good about the actions is about actions and activities or technologies and products. Those contribute largely to the society and benefit the largest number of people in the largest possible way. The most important thing is largest number of people in largest possible. If it just, for example, Shyama came up with, let's say, grass cutting machine. there were 3,000 grass cutters in the campus, and maybe thousands of grass cutters must be across West Bengal. But it did not, but he could not make it popular, so it can't be called as social good. But definitely it is an attempt towards social good. So the most important thing, if a particular entrepreneur or particular person is becoming rich, for example, let's say XYZ entrepreneur is becoming rich, then that is not a social good. But let's say, suppose larger section of the society is getting benefit, then definitely it's social good. It could include healthcare for everyone, clean and healthy air, clean and healthy water, literacy, and so on and so forth. It's also known as common good. And there is a ancient Greece philosopher who actually introduced this terminology. So you can have a lot of, it's basically we are using AI for empowerment. So creating value through AI, there could be depression detection, there could be large population using AI, empowered system, wellness of every individual, caring of the environment, imparting knowledge, and so on and so forth. So if the question remains, if I am doing this, can it be called as social good? So you have to ask few key questions. Who are getting impacted? Who are getting impacted and how they are getting? So larger number of people in the largest possible way, definitely, then that's a social good. Betterment touching lives of millions, value for population. There could be direct value, there could be indirect value, and there could be a lot of, so if you look at it, I just thought, okay, social and common good. So it's goal driven, it's talking about numbers. Since it is a very, very related to real time, it has to deal with uncertainty. Large number of people, so networking and evolution. So these all technologies related to AI, systemic machine learning, cooperative machine learning, evolutionary algorithms, evolutionary learning, bio-inspired artificial learning, AI, huge data, that big data and other surprises, so uncertainty-based learning, competitive and greedy algorithms and association, everything can come under it. So there could be a small idea. Suppose you have to use NLP, let's say answering questions of majority. A social chatbot can be a social good. Summarization at your service, that could be. Recommending action for the betterment of life. Health company, chat, and so many chatbots. So basically, let's try to define these terminologies. What is learning? So I like the book by Peter Senge, which is Fifth Discipline, one of the best books. Best management books, and it's one of the best-selling books. He defined learning in the best, very nice way. He says that learning does not mean acquiring more information, but it is about expanding the ability to produce the result we truly want in life. So I just tried to, so learning is building the ability to produce the expected result. So on the same lines, because I thought that probably machine learning and AI can be defined in the same way. So AI could be defined that AI is about embedding intelligence, preferably human-like intelligence, into machine to expand its ability to produce the result we truly want from machine. Or in the same way, machine learning does not mean acquiring more information by machine, but expanding the ability of the machine to produce the result we truly want out of the machine. So I'll just give you this couple of stories and we'll process how shall I approach social good AI products. So begin with a problem. So I will just try to give you a story of Mani Bhaumik. He did his PhD from IIT Kharagpur almost, I think 60 years back, or I don't remember how many years, maybe 55 years or 60 years back. Mani was from a very poor family. He was staying at a Midnapur. His father was a teacher. He did his master's from Kolkata University, and then he got admission for PhD to IIT. He was working on laser and something like that. In those days, the buses coming from Midnapur to Kharagpur used to be very crowded. And one of his friends said कि अरे तू इतना बड़ा साइंटिस्ट है, मेरा ये प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर. तो उसने उसको स्पेक्स दिखाया कि दिस इज माय प्रॉब्लम, बिकॉज यू कांट एंटर इन द बस विद द स्पेक्स. अगर उसका कोई एंगल चेंज हो जाए, यू कांट सी इट. अगर वो गलती से गिर गया और किसी ने पैर दे दिया तो देन हफ्ते भर की छुट्टी. एंड दोज डेज देयर वर दीज ग्लास, those were not these thin, those used to be very heavy, those used to leave marks on the nose and everyone. So he said mera ye problem solve karo. Mani took it seriously. He studied those laser technology during his PhD. He went to UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles for his postdoc. He continued his research. Mani invented LASIK. Millions of people got rid of their specs using LASIK surgery. So it impacts largest number of people in the largest possible way. So begin with a problem. If you want to use AI for social good, here he didn't use AI. But basic principle is begin with a problem. So he got the problem. We many times begin research with a research paper, and I always feel that if research paper is not specifying the problem, then that is, even if it has thousands of citations, probably not worth of reading. Identify opportunities. I actually have a story from my book, Knowledge Innovation Strategy. This is a story of Mr. Shrikant. He was from a small village, Kupwad. He did his diploma in some mechanical engineering or so, and then joined some company in Pune. One fine day, Shrikant went to his hometown, and he was roaming around near his home. It was raining, and there are a lot of farms because it's long back, almost more than 15 years back story, 15, maybe something like that. That time there was probably in the Kupwad area, there were many farms and all that. And some industrial estate is also there in Kupwad area, if someone knows about the Sangli. Actually, I'm from, I did my bachelor's from the same place. This guy saw a very cute looking machine outside many farms. He thought this is such a nice looking machine, and why it is lying outside the farm. So he called one farmer कि भैया ये बताइए कि ये इतना अच्छा मशीन यहाँ क्यों पड़ा है. वो बोला यार ये तो कुछ काम का नहीं. So he said, what is that? That person explained him, it's a briquetting machine. So briquetting machine is used to convert agro waste into agro fuel. So this machine used to press that agro waste under pressure using mechanical force, and then some cakes are formed. Those can be used for agro fuel. So it's used for fuel. Sorry. So he said, why it's useless? He said, the government gives subsidy. That's why we buy it. But once, first thing is it doesn't form that agro fuel properly. The efficiency is pretty low, and it has a very huge cost for maintenance. It's आपको चाहिए क्या बोले ले जाइए. उसको लगा कि यार, तो श्रीकांत ने सोचा कि ठीक है. He paid some amount to that person. He took that home machine to his home. He actually dismantled that machine. And then he realized, okay, that mechanical technology, that pressure 4-chain mechanism is used, which has some lot of issues. So he used a hydraulic mechanism and even patented Hydrabel. And it improved the efficiency, lowered the maintenance cost. Another thing, he realized that only forward stroke is used. So he even made a provision that reverse stroke can be used. Reverse stroke used. So efficiency further improved. Then he realized that pressure applied to that agro waste to press is always same. And he wanted to make that machine intelligence. So he wanted that pressure should vary based on quality of the agro waste. Because if it is cow dung, what type of pressure is required? If it is, let's say, some grass, what should be the pressure and all that. So he came up with a mechanism that there is a image processing plus weight of that agro waste, and based on that, automatically it will learn based on past experience, and it will tune the pressure, and the pressure will be applied. And he made the world's first intelligent briquetting machine, Hydra Bell. Imagine, the machine is now exported to more than 24 countries. So you identify the learning opportunity, whatever may be the machine. It's a briquetting machine. He found out opportunity of learning in the briquetting machine. There's another, we are working here in Japan for mushroom classification, and a lot of people have seen the problem, but still the problem is not solved. Niigata is known for very quality mushroom. We are also working on parking, because in Japan parking is very expensive. So opportunity cost-based parking. We even intelligent appraisal system and all that. Number of projects I'm doing. Maybe it's probably we won't get. We already started late, so I may not able to cover all those application in detail. But I will take few more case studies. There are few other interesting projects I'm working. I found I met one student. He was studying in one of the universities in Tokyo, Bandor. I went for a talk, and after a talk, he came to me. And he said he's a lawyer. Bandor was a criminal lawyer. He did his bachelor's, some LLB, LLM, whatever it may be, and working with one of the leading legal firms from Hungary. And then he came there, some exchange program for 1 year to Japan. And he was doing some bachelor. Along with that, he wanted to do bachelor in computer science. So he was pursuing this. And then he started discussing a problem, very interesting problem. He said that suppose there is he's one of the well-known legal firm from. He was working with one of the well-known legal firm from Budapest. That's the capital of Hungary. And he said they are facing a problem. So what was that problem? That there are many people who want to consult a lawyer. So they come to these type of big firms. So what happens that at first go, what happens that the main lawyer won't meet them, even though whatever may be the case. First, some junior, some intern type of lawyer listen to what these guys are doing. Like in CA office, there are many interns, legal offices, there are many interns. So these intern type of people, they will listen to the case. And if they think that this case is worth taking, then they go to some sort of middle level lawyer, and they tell them that, okay, this looks interesting, we can take it, and this is under our area of expertise and all that. And then finally, if it is, then that main lawyer listen to them. Many times the middle level lawyer thinks that this is not worth taking. Then after a couple of days, they discard it. So a lot of time is wasted. If it is a very big legal firm, they even charge for this consultation also. And even after taking that money, tell that we can't take it. But not a regular legal company afford it. So they waste almost a couple of days of these lawyers for a case they can't solve it or they don't want to take it. So he wanted to solve that problem. And second problem with the people, that they lose those 2 important days because they would have met some other lawyer. It may be very important, correct? And if it's a very high, for common people, it's very important. Maybe for someone who's very wealthy and who's already some sort of celebrity, it may not be a problem. But for a common person, that particular day is important. Those 2 days are important. They want to actually solve the problem. So Bandot came up with a legal kiosk. So I was consultant to that particular project. So it's a very interesting concept that below the legal firm, there will be legal kiosk. It will ask some questions to that person. Along with that, he can actually converse with that legal kiosk, and then it will classify that case into amber, green, and red. If it is red and still that person wants to meet the lawyer, he has to pay even consultation fee. If it is amber, then it is doubtful. Probably they may take it, may not take it. Then free of cost, junior lawyers will consult them. And if it is green, then directly those cases will go to middle level lawyer. And what Bandot claims that almost 30% time of the medium level and junior lawyers is saved because of this project. Imagine the time saved of the people, and probably this concept can be very easily converted into a social good. Another student who met me in the same, there are actually 3 students met me that time. One is Poom, he's from Thailand. And Thailand, he wanted that destruction of the forest as well as agricultural land because of the elephant to be stopped. And he built an intelligent agent that can sense the footsteps of the farmer and give the signal ahead of time so that people can actually make proper arrangement and the wastage or destruction of agriculture or crops or agricultural products can be avoided. Dan has another very, very interesting concept. He is actually working on it. He's still in Japan. Dan is from Norway. He found that because of the corona, many students are playing video games. Even when you give lectures, whether they listen or not online, we don't know. Many times they must be listening to or playing some games, probably. So what he thought that, okay, they play game, that's fine, that's not an issue. But these games, some couple of studies he showed me that these games have the negative impact on our behavior. So those are not developed considering the improvement of social intelligence. So those actually work negatively. So what he has an idea that you load your profile, and based on that, the game's version means that empathy, that player's behavior will change, and that he's working on. That could be very interesting idea, because so many, and these video games are very popular in Japan and even in other countries also. So what happens that probably if that type of thing is achieved, probably it can help large number of people in the largest possible way. So our 4th principle is model to value creation. It's very important. It's not just about model. So first we said that begin with a problem. Second, we say identify learning opportunity. Third thing is machine learning model is the key. Fourth thing is model to value creation and not constraint. I have another case study. This is of Mr. Satish Gandhi. Actually, you know these images. These are chickpeas. Even they're called as chana, roasted chana. And I think it's rich in B12 and a couple of other. It's a very nutritious thing. So the story of Mr. Satish Gandhi's father was a grocer. And he was staying in a small village near Ahmednagar. His father wanted him to study, so he did his 10th and then went for B.Pharm to Karad. There's another place near Pune, Karad, where he did his diploma in pharmacy. Came back to his hometown, and his father told him that Satish, I will start a medical store next to our grocery shop and you look after that store. Satish was very clear, say, I don't want to run a medical shop. मुझे नहीं समझ में आता. But father was very adamant, then look after the grocery shop. He has no courage to go against his father. So he started looking after that grocery shop. Then his father, every time he was behind his father that मुझे ये करना है, मुझे वो करना है. Father got really upset and one fine day he even got him married so that he will not run away. But his wife was also like-minded. And one fine day, they eloped, not before marriage, after marriage, came to Pune. And after coming to Pune, his wife asked what we are doing, what we are going to do. He said, हम चना बेचेंगे. We'll start chickpeas. She was really puzzled whether she took a right decision to elope or not. But anyway, she agreed to him and they started. So Satish was good at making chana because his uncle had some chana making business in Mahabaleshwar, which is near Pune. And he used to make a good quality of chana where he learned exactly how good quality chana can be. So he started making it. Every day, वो 1 kg, 2 kg लेके आता था. Raw chana, and he used to burst it and then make it properly salted and used to sell it. But it was very hectic. Nothing was working out. One fine day, he saw advertisement that there is an expo in Dubai. So he said, okay, fine, I should go to Dubai and sell this chana. He collected money from his friends and then went to Dubai and put the stall in Dubai, in that expo. No one did visit him. For first 2 days, hardly a few visitors, half a dozen or less. He was really worried whether he did right thing or not. There was a stall next to him of some 5-star hotel. They used to give pasta, pizzas and all that, and all people were interested in visiting that. And who likes chana anyway? All were visiting that pizza and pasta stalls. This guy was really, ऐसे ही बैठा था. It was about to complete the last day था उस expo का. एक बंदा आया, वो बोला कि अरे ये क्या बना रहा है? Because he found that there is a lot of the next stall is very crowded. So जब तक वहाँ crowd कम होता तब तक इस बंदे से बात कर ले. क्या ग्लास की बोतल लेके बैठा है, चना समथिंग लेके. तो उसने पूछा कि ये क्या है? तो बोला ये इंडियन चना है. It's a chickpeas and it is roasted chana. It's very healthy. It's better than hazelnut. उसने उसको टेस्ट दिया. वो बंदा बोला ठीक है. नेक्स्ट डे एक घंटे के बाद वो बंदा फिर से आया with his boss and he said, this guy is vice president of this airlines and I like this looks good. तो उसके बॉस ने भी टेस्ट किया, उसको कुछ सवाल पूछे कि क्या क्या है. उसने काफी रट के रखा था. एनीवे वी आर गुड, वी इंडियंस आर गुड एट इट. तो उसको काफी कुछ न्यूट्रिशियस वैल्यू ये कुछ रट के रखा था. उसने सब बता दिया उसको. बंदा बोला ठीक है. थोड़ी देर सोचा, बोला कि कैन यू गिव अस 30 tons बाय एंड ऑफ दिस मंथ. फिर डर गया. मैं 1 किलो बनाता हूँ, 2 किलो बनाता हूँ, 30 टन. बोले नहीं बॉस, 30 टन नहीं, 100 किलो में काम चला लीजिए. नहीं, nothing doing. Finally, they exchanged the visiting cards. This guy came back to India. He invented first automated chana making machine in the world. And then he started making chana. He first consignment उससे फिर से उनको कांटेक्ट किया. तो बोले एक छोटा कंसाइनमेंट भेजिए, विल अगेन टेस्ट इट एंड बताएंगे. सो उसने एक छोटा कंसाइनमेंट भेजा और वो बंदा बोला कि नहीं, दिस इज नॉट ऑफ द क्वालिटी यू गेव अस इन द एक्सपो. This guy was worried. Then he started working for machine learning. What he did, he classified the raw chana into 4 categories. One is fully breakable, second is 2 cycle breakable, third is 3 cycle breakable, and fourth is unbreakable. The idea is no unbreakable chana should go into the export quality. And that concept worked. He identified 36 parameters to classify. Imagine a pharmacist who became a thermodynamic engineer to develop a chana making machine. and joined hands with machine learning researchers to make it intelligent. And then the idea worked. He got nod from that airlines. Today, Satish Gandhi is exporting more chana to more than 50 countries in the world. So, not constrained by application when you're trying about social good for AI. So it's a deep and exploratory. So what I thought there is one very interesting example. I will actually give. I was heading this research lab ideas in 2001. I was heading ideas research labs in Pune. 2001, and in 2000 there was a foot and mouth disease. Foot and mouth disease. What happened? Foot and mouth disease was some contagious disease, uh, not like this pandemic, but it has serious impact on hospitality industry. So we started losing our contracts. And we wanted to solve this problem. So at that time, our vice president, Ravi Mehrotra, Dr. Ravi Mehrotra called me and he said, we want to actually work on this to solve this problem using algorithmic way. When I went there, we studied a lot of data and we realized that the hospitality industry, 2-star, 3-star are not impacted that much. And our customers were only 5-star hotels. Those were mainly impacted. So मैंने उनको पूछा कि we should go for this. So there was a difficulty. We used to require 1 year of data. Secondly, we had a yield team which used to work for 6 months on to develop those algorithms because it was almost, imagine 20 years back, 22 years back. So they said it's almost impossible. And that came up. With that, we came up with a concept of incremental machine learning. So it was a very, very interesting idea in a real life that suppose there are 200 hotels. Every hotel has a behavior. So these behaviors are clustered. Then there is a representative behavior of every cluster. And when there is a new property comes in, we actually just check the features and assign it to one of the class, and that representative behavior is directly pulled for learning, for decision making for that new property. And as the data keeps coming, the behavior is adjusted. Imagine that work like a magic. Ideas got 1,000 customers in next 1 year. So learning to cope up with the challenges. So it's always exploratory. So when you're trying to AI for social good or whatever it may be, it's not exactly a social good example. Same thing, mortgage industry. I was working for one company. I was chief scientist of Caps Law, one company. And what happened? We were trying to solve the problem. What was the problem? Problem was that mortgage industry, there are these loans and there is a secondary selling, tertiary selling of the loans. And we wanted to classify and collate those OCR documents with highest accuracy. We used NeuroScript and on top of that existing classifiers, and it was not working at all. It was simply not working. And one fine day I was sitting with a human operator who was classifying it. And I was like, "Yeah, tu kaise classify?" So he said, I looked at this word, even though this is not correct, I know that, okay, this word here, this word here, this word here, this word here. I got an idea that can we build a location diagram from that? And we came up with the concept of location diagram based classification. And that location diagram based classifier worked like a magic. We have 3 patents. Company captured huge number of customers out and sold to some company a few years back. There is actually there are a lot of I was interestingly, even though I was in industry in 2000, there was no PhD guide at COEP. That is computer engineering guide was not there. So I was the first PhD guide in COEP. So I used to guide externally, and I guided 16 PhD students. So one of my few students worked on very interesting things. One is working on grace notes to map the emotion and musical emotion. That is some sort of therapy, music therapy. Another is finding out turning point in the matches, and this is actually came up with a successful product. Then unearthing Bharatnatyam stories, which is actually we build a tool which can be used for some sort of helping the Bharatnatyam dancers. Again, it's not commercially successful, this Bharatnatyam, but it's all this work by PhD candidates. So what I will do, I will just keep few slides, and I will. There are many stories I can tell. And I can keep on telling stories, but I think we have to stop in next 5-7 minutes, right? So what I will do, I will conclude with a poem. Then you can enlighten the world. Everyone is running after the goal with all stress and strength. Everyone is forcing the team as a whole in storm and rain. Sometimes I wonder and ask myself, do I know the real goal? While running fast all along, have I forgotten my true role? It goes like that. It is the rat race. Body gets tired, so our soul. Success we get without success. Deadlines are made sometimes. Those are missed many times. We try to laugh to show we are happy. We try to balance on the surface sloppy. Today, when I am looking back, there are just pieces of thoughts. Less success and more loss. No light and everything is dark. Let me tell you the only fact. Light is inside and outside is dark. Look inside for the light and goal. Then you can enlighten the world whole. So dear friends, with that, I will stop here. Yeah, if you have, I would like to take questions. If anyone has any question, please.
Raise the hand.
Yeah. I think no question. So, okay, good, good. Any question? So right now, I think many people are working on very interesting projects, and those I always think that those can be converted into products. Even my friend that Pradeep Sinha, who's PK Sinha, is actually vice chancellor of this Naya Raipur. He said he wrote that book on distributed system as part of his PhD. Means he studied distributed system during his PhD and wrote that book, which actually referred at many universities. Even recently, one of my classmates at Walchand, she became that CEO of Chanel, Lina. So if you look at even her story, though she was in electronics engineering, I was in computer engineering, so she was batchmate rather, and then went to TIFR. So, sorry, went to XLRI. So her story is exactly what solving the problem every time. So that exactly represented. She was in HR, so always you look at her every progress, solving the problem. So whether you are a technocrat, whether you are a management professional, it's always about solving the problem. There is one more interesting thing. This Dr. F.C. Kohli used to say. F.C. Kohli, you know, he's known as father of IT revolution in India, and he was some 97, 98 when he passed away last year. So he used to tell that how he's made TCS successful. So he said he always looking at what type of problem for larger number of people TCS can solve. And he had actually a lot of initiative. Unfortunately, TCS was more project-oriented company and could not actually convert them. But his all ideas were actually converting those can touch the people. He, whatever right now actually is happening, he used to tell 20 years back. Okay, everyone should be able to translate, that every person should be able to use this functionality. So what I always think that these people became successful because they wanted to solve problem. And probably we can join them in some way or other. Okay, any question? Even when I met Ratan Tata for this knowledge innovation strategy, I met almost 2-3 times Ratan Tata. He likes to tell that story of Nano, that how anyway Nano was not that successful, but it was his dream project, and he said how Nano evolved. So they used some plastic sheets, and then what he tried to do, and then even they had idea that there was a Swachh type of that water purifier. How Ratan Tata himself worked for that Swachh project and wanted that purifier to be of the cost less than 1,000 rupees, which is actually developed by TRDDC in Pune. So imagine a person, chairman of the company, who is actually working very closely to a small project in TRDDC, where he wanted a water purifier to be given in less than 1,000 rupees. So that, I think that thought process actually changes the thing. And probably this, that is what I wanted to convey today. Yeah. Okay. Any question? So anyway, then
I think so. There's any question right now?
Okay. So shall we stop here?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you for your enriching talk, sir. We are much obliged by the inputs and insights you have offered. We will definitely keep in mind what you have told us about using AI and machine learning for good. If the participants of the audience agree, we might click a picture with all of the participants. I request all of you guys to turn on your cameras if it's possible.
अखिलेश सर आपका कैमरा ऑन नहीं हुआ. Okay, thank you very much. It's very interesting lessons, and you have given very amazing examples, and we have to think on that direction.
Okay.
Thank you again, sir, for being here and taking time out of your day to be with us.
Thank you. See you. So shall I log off?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You
sir.
can.
See. Bye.
For the remaining participants, we'll take a 5-minute break right now before continuing with the next talk of the day. Greetings, everyone. We welcome you back to the Management Development Program on the role of data science and management. Without taking much of your time, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ashish Kumar. Dr. Ashish Kumar is an assistant professor from the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at Manipal University, Jaipur. He has had over 100 publications, including journal publications and conference publications, and has over 420 citations. Without further ado, I hand over the stage to Dr. Ashish.
Thank you, Vanshika. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, I say thanks to all the organizers for giving me this opportunity and for successfully conducting this management development program on the topic role of data science in management. Actually, in the title itself also, there are two very big or key terms. One is data and another one is management. So first of all, we have to understand about management. There are various fields in the management like marketing, production, finance, even HR also. And when the persons involved in these field like marketing field, then if they want to produce or they want to launch a new product, then what marketing research team did? They conduct a pilot study, and with the help of that, they explore the market, they search or they gain the information about the buying capacity, they search the market, and according to that, with the help of the pilot study, they generate the data, they collect the data, and on the basis of that data, some results are drawn. So like in HR department also collect the information of all the employees, all the personals involved in various departments with the help of the data. And production section, production division of any plant also draw the or test the quality of the produced items with the help of the data. And but from where this data comes and what is data? When we discuss about data, then our simple answer is anything which gives us some information, either that is in the numerical form or in the images, pictures, all this gives us the data. But how to handle that data and from where it generates? These are two very important questions here. So when we discuss about the generation of the data, then one question arises here that model generate data or data generates model. This is my first question that arises when we discuss about the data. There are two popular hypotheses that first data came and then we develop the model, or model is already exist. With the help of that, we generate the data. So when we investigate it, then we generally find that for every phenomena, models are already exist in the nature. With the help of that models, we collect the data, those models generate the data, we collect that data, and on the basis of that, we develop some hypothetical models, and on the basis of that, on the basis of the collected data, we test our hypothetical model and try to iteratively improve the accuracy of our proposed models, and we always try to reach the as near as possible to the true natural model. So models are already exist in nature. Those generates the data and we use that data for the analysis purpose in all the fields, either in engineering, in management, in medical sector, in all the fields, either in physical sciences, social sciences, we use this approach. But when we discuss about model, then also there is a classification that which type of models we are using, mathematical model or statistical model. Mathematical model have the applications that they give always an exact answer, but it's not possible in management, and due to that there is some probabilistic or random phenomena is present in management sector, and the requirement of statistical models increase. That's why we take I take this topic of regression models, type, importance, and the limitations. Due to application of regression modeling to predict the future of various industries, we take this topic. These are the content of the talk: introduction, types of regression, what are the importance of it, what are the limitations, and references. So as we already discussed it, that models, natural model already exist. On the basis of that, we collect the data and we develop the hypothetical model, and then we test them. But all this is done with the help of the regression modeling. So these are the key objectives of regression analysis. Means when we want to analyze some phenomena, either in management sector or in engineering sector, first of all, we have to clearly understand the phenomena or explicit form of that particular industry. And to understand that, what we have to do, we have to clearly identify all the variables, all the influential variables, those are involved there. And for that, we have to understand the relationship between the variables. Which variables? The response variable as well as predictors. And with the help of that relationship, we have to develop the model there to identify the interpersonal relationship. So these are the key objectives when we want to find the relationship, or when we want to predict something, then we have to use this regression modeling. But I use two words. One is relationship and second one is prediction. For relationship, we also use correlation. And initially, when we deal with in any industry, there are a lot of variables are there. Then we generally try to find the relationship, that is one factor is affecting the other or not. So for that, we also use correlation. And correlation is a statistical tool which help the HR or the statistician involved in that particular industry to find the relationship between the two variables. Which variable is dependent, which variable is independent, that is not considered here. And we can find that if our variables under discussion is number of passenger traveling in a flight and operational cost of that flight, then obviously as the number of passenger increase, the operational cost is also increase. Then that scenario becomes positive correlation. Means if one variable increase, second variable also increase, that is positive correlation. If one variable increase but second variable decrease, that is negative correlation. And if there is no phenomena exist between no such kind of relationship, increase or decrease relationship or connection exist between the variables, that is generally known as no correlation type situation. So at that time, we are not satisfied actually with the finding the relationship. We cannot do much more. We want to predict, or we want to get some more accurate result. And one another thing we always have to remember, that both these techniques, correlation and regression, both are based on the sample, and we have to develop the model on the basis of the sample, and then we have to draw the conclusion for the whole population. So this regression help us to develop a mathematical model with respect to the independent variables, and then by using that we have to make predictions for the dependent variable. Suppose any person wants to buy a house. Then when he visited to any site for purchasing a house or for looking the site, then what he think? His first objective is he wants to buy a house, but he is not only thinking about the house. He have to explore many hidden variables also. What is the distance of that particular society? What is the size of the flat? What about the locality? What is the distance of that particular location from a hospital? What about the situation of educational institutes from that particular site? So many hidden questions are also involved in deciding the price, in motivating any person to buy any property. So this is one example in the real estate market. We in other fields also, if I take the example of agriculture, then if any employee from agricultural department wants to predict the production of rice or wheat in next season, then what he think? He correctly, first of all, he correctly specify his objective, and according to that objective, he clearly identify the factors, factors which influence the production, like amount of rainfall, total cultivated area, and amount of fertilizers used. Such type of independent variables, though influence the dependent or response variable, must have to be identified, and then a combined mathematical model should be developed. So after that, these regression models, according to availability of the number of independent variables, are classified into various categories. Many times, if we have only one response variable and one predictor variable, then we say that we have a simple regression model, and we have we can simply develop a model y equal to a plus beta x, and with the help of that we can predict. But this is not the situation in marketing, in management. In management, if you are predict something, then corresponding to that variable is influenced by lot of other factors, and you have to utilize all those factors also in your model. So in that situation, you have one response variable and n number of independent or predictor variables, and that type of model is known as multiple regression model. So before procedure for performing simple regression model or multiple regression model is same. We follow the same steps in the development of the regression models. At the first stage, you clearly define or understand the problem which is under consideration. You are interested to study the real estate problem. You are interested in studying any medical pharma related problem. You are interested in any marketing problem, and you are interested in any financial problem. You have to clearly understand your problem. It's the first and foremost step in the development of the regression modeling. Once your problem is clear, once your problem is in your hand, after that you must have to choose relevant variables. You must have to identify your dependent variable, as well as you must have to clearly identify your independent variables, because if your variables are not relevant, or it may be possible that some variables are similar to each other and you just select all the variables, if you increase the number of independent variable or dependent variable, what it did, it resulted as the complexity of the model. So once your problem is clear, after that in second step you have to select all the relevant variables. Those are directly associated with your problem. After selection of the variables, you have to collect the data only on the relevant variables. So before collection of the data, there are two very important steps: understanding of the problem and selection of the relevant variables. Once your data is collected, you can collect the data. There are different procedures. You can collect, you can use the primary data, you can use the secondary data, you can use the personal interview method, you can use the questionnaire method, you can send a Google form, you can send your representative. There are different approaches through which you collect the data from the respondents. And after data is in your hand, then you have to specify the model, which type of model you are going to apply. You want to apply linear model, you want to apply non-linear model, but this does not depends on you. This selection or specification of model depends on the nature of the variables and collection and nature of the data. This specification of model is decided by the choice of relevant variable and collection of the availability of the data. Once your model is specified, you think that these variables and this data is suitable for a linear model, then you choose the linear model. And after that, when model is specified, then you have to choose the method for fitting the data. Now, fitting the data means you are going to estimate the parameters. When you are going to estimate the parameters, there are different method of estimation are available. Maximum likelihood method is also there. Bayes method is also there. Moments method is there. Least square method is there. So lot of methods are there, but all these methods give you a local optimum value with the local value, and with the help of that you fit the model. After fitting of the model, that is your model, you develop a model for the sample, you have to check it for the population. Then we have to do model validation and criticism. We validate the model, and then when validation is complete, then you have to use your model for the solution of the problems. So these 8 steps we must have to follow in the development of the regression models. Any type of regression modeling is there: simple, multiple, univariate, multivariate, logistic. Any type of regression modeling is there, but we must have to follow these 8 steps in the development of the regression model. All the requirements we must have to checked at every steps. Like when we go for the statement of the problem under consideration, then we must have to clearly check that which one is our dependent and which one is our independent variable. Because if our selection of dependent and independent variable is changed, then our regression model is also changed. We must have to select all the relevant variable. Like in agricultural, our production is always dependent variable, and fertilizer, rainfall, irrigation, temperature, all of these are our independent variables. And collection of data, we must have to follow some appropriate approach for the collection of the data. And then how to organize the collected data. For the regression analysis, we always have to rearrange the data. We always have to present our data in this form. That is, suppose we collected data on 20 sample observations. Then what we did, we first write the respondent number 1. We write the response given by the first respondent regarding dependent variable, and then we compile the data given by first respondent for all the independent variables. In this way we store the data for corresponding to all the 20 sample observations. So simple and multiple we already discussed, but there are a lot of types of regression are present, and we use these according to our objectives. First one is univariate regression model. When we have only one quantitative response variable, data, we start with the data, and data is already classified into two categories. We clearly understand this concept. If only quantitative data is there, our response variable is only quantitative in nature, assume some numerical value, then only we can use univariate regression model. But if there are two or more than two quantitative response variable are there, then we have to use multivariate regression model. Simple, if we have one dependent and one independent variable is there, one dependent and one independent variable is there, then we use simple regression model. And if we have two or more than two independent variable, these may be 2, maybe 10, maybe 20, but dependent variable is only one. In that case, we always have to multiple regression model. So in multivariate and multiple, there is a difference. In a multivariate, there may be two or more than two quantitative dependent variable, but in multiple, there is only one dependent variable. In multiple, independent may be any, but dependent is always one. And similarly, univariate and simple is also different. According to your problem, you have to decide that which model you are going to apply. But in simple, there is only one dependent and one independent. After that, linear. Linear in statistical models and in mathematical models, there is also a difference about the linearity. In mathematical models, we generally check the linearity with respect to the variables. But in regression model or in statistical models, we check the linearity about the parameters. We check the linearity about the parameters. We are not interested in the linearity of independent variable x1, x2, xn. Here linearity is checked about the parameters beta 1, beta 2, beta 3 means the coefficients of the independent variable. If the coefficient of independent variables are linear, then we say that our model is linear. Either directly linear, or if there is some transformation exists through which we can convert the parameter into linear form, then only we say that our model is linear. Otherwise, our model is termed as non-linear. And ANOVA, analysis of variance. ANOVA is also a particular case of regression itself. In regression, it's necessary that all the independent and dependent variables are quantitative in nature. But when your quantitative variable, when your dependent variable is quantitative, but all the independent variable are qualitative. This is the difference. If all the independent variable are qualitative in nature, but dependent variable is quantitative in nature, in that case, you have to apply analysis of variance. You have to develop the model through analysis of variance. Analysis of covariance is also here. Few of the independent variable are qualitative and few of them are quantitative in nature. Then you have to apply covariance method. But in both the situations, quantitative dependent variable must be quantitative in nature. And the last one is logistic regression. In logistic regression, your dependent variable is qualitative in nature. Here, it may be possible that dependent variable may be dichotomous in nature. Either they have the response yes or no, or it may be possible that it have multiple categories are possible. So if your dependent variable is qualitative in nature, then it's always recommended that you must have to go for logistic. If your dependent variable is quantitative but independent variables are qualitative, then always recommended to use analysis of variance. If all dependent and independent variables are quantitative in nature, then you check the possibility of simple or multiple correlation. And if you have more than one dependent variable is there, then check the possibility of multivariate regression models. So according to number of variables and type of variables, you have to decide that which type of variable is related with your research problem, and according to that you have to use the particular model. So this is the specification of the model that we already discussed, that the experimenter or person working in the subject can help in determining the form of the model with the help of the industry experts, with the industry in which you are with which your problem is associated. That person can help you to determine that person give you the subject knowledge of that particular field. After that, all the models developed depends on some unknown parameters, and according to that you have to classify that which type of model you have to use in your study. Choice of method for fitting the data, that is, here we have to estimate the parameters. Actually, we do the regression modeling, or we develop the models in those situations when we do the sampling, when we are dealing with the samples. Population size is very large. We cannot perform the census due to several reasons, due to cost, due to time, due to requirement of manpower. In that situation, what we did, we select a sample, and on the basis of that sample, we develop a model, and on the basis of that model we estimate the parameters for the whole population, and this estimation is done with the help of least square method, maybe some maximum likelihood method, maybe we many times especially in management we also use principal component, and we also use factor analysis, maybe that factor analysis in terms of CFA or maybe EFA. Both type of factor analysis we can conduct, but those are the situations when we have 30, 40, 50 number of independent variables are there, and in that situation we cannot go with so many independent variables. So we perform the factor analysis and then we develop the model. So this choice of fitting and the method for fitting of the parameters is very important also in development of the regression model. Like this, it's my model. Here y is my dependent variable, and this f is the functional relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. So x1, x2, xk are my independent variable. This beta1, beta2, beta k, these are the parameters, and these parameters are associated with the whole population. I want to find the value of beta1, beta2, beta k. This beta1, beta2, beta k tells us that beta1 tells us that how much variation in y happened due to x1. This beta2 tells me that how much variation in y happened due to x2, and beta k tells us that how much variation is happen in y due to xk. But this model is totally hypothetical. Natural model I cannot investigate, so some amount of error is always remain there in the scenario, and that amount of error is represented by this epsilon. So what we did, I cannot estimate this accurately. I cannot find the value of this model accurately. So I estimate the value of beta 1 cap, beta 2 cap, and beta k cap, and on the basis of this I develop the model and find the estimated or predicted value of y cap, and the difference between observed value of the parameter and the predicted value of the dependent variable is termed as the amount of error. And in regression modeling, we always try to reduce the amount of error by revising our model, by improving our model iteratively. And model criticism, and selection. This is also very important because every model is developed under certain set of assumptions, and if those assumptions are not satisfied, then there is no utility of that model. And these assumptions, those we define in the beginning, are associated with the model and data. And quality of statistical inference. Inference means when we draw the conclusion for the whole population on the basis of the sample. That is totally depends on these assumptions, that these assumptions are satisfied or not. So when you develop your model and you want to apply it in the industry, before that you must have to check all those assumptions carefully, that you have at the time of development of the model, you checked those assumptions or not, all your assumptions are verified or not. If your assumptions are not verified, your experiment is not performed under those assumptions, then your model is not accurate. So it's very important to decide that the situation is which the assumption may not meet, and validation of assumptions must be made before drawing any statistical conclusion, and any difference between the validity of assumption will be reflected in the model. So regression analysis as a whole, or development of regression models, is a iterative procedure where we follow this whole approach. That is, in the beginning, we define some theory, we propose a model, on that model, we define some assumptions, we give the data, and we choose the statistical methods like least square method, maximum likelihood estimation, principal component factor analysis, which approach we can choose according to requirements. Then we give this input to our model regression, then we make the estimation and we obtain the output beta 1 cap, beta 2 cap, that is estimated value of parameter we obtain. We obtain confidence intervals at a desired level of significance, 5%, 1%, and that is decided according to the requirement of the or importance of the study. And graphical display means behavior of residuals is also we can identify from there. These output we generally obtain. You can this whole process with the help of any statistical software like Minitab, SPSS, Excel, or SAS, Stata, Python. You can use any of these and you can obtain all these results in a single command. And after that, when we obtain the output, then we diagnose all these outputs. We check the validation of these and we criticize the model. And then if all the assumptions are fulfilled, then okay, our model is good, we can apply it. But if our model is not good, some assumptions are not met, and we find that the confidence region is not good, standard error of the model is not good, R square value is not good, residual shows that there is some type of correlation is present, then in that situation, you cannot go with that model. You must have to revise your model. Either you have to clearly understand your problem, either you have to relook your variables, either you have to look your data collection procedure, and you have to look the developed model you propose, and on the basis you again perform the same steps for the development of a good model. So these steps we generally follow. So this is the mathematical form, we can say, of the simple linear regression model. Dependent variable equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x plus epsilon. But this model is related to the whole population, and we cannot develop this on the basis of the whole model. So what we did, we select a sample, and on the basis of that sample, we just estimate the value of beta naught and beta 1 cap. And on the basis of that, we find the predicted value. We just find the predicted value. yi cap equal to beta naught plus beta 1. These b naught and b1, these are the estimated value for beta naught and beta 1. And from here, we find the value of yi cap. This is our predicted value. And the difference of this predicted and the actual value is termed as the error. So this error can be checked in this way graphically, and we always find, and this is the foremost assumption of the data, that sum of all the errors must be 0. First thing, your errors always follow normal distribution with mean 0. Your error must follow normal distribution with mean 0. This is a assumption associated with the classical linear regression models. And these errors are also known as residuals. And this is the procedure which we can follow to development of the model with the help of the least square method. After development of the model, we have to check the goodness of the model. And for checking the goodness of the model, we generally follow the approach of coefficient of determination. We have to check the concept of coefficient of determination. Actually, coefficient of determination tells that what is the percentage that a independent variable is responsible for variation in the dependent variable, and it is just the whole square of the coefficient of correlation. So this coefficient of determination is the ratio of explained variation to the total variation. So R square is explained variation divided by total variation, and its range is always lies between 0 to 1. If range is 0, if value is 0, R square equal to 0, then we say that your independent variable does not influence your dependent variable, and the variation happen in your dependent variable is not due to your independent variable. There are some or other reasons are there, but your independent variable is not responsible for that. So here I already developed a model, and with the help of that model, I found that I have two variables. One variable is how much time I invest on watching the television, and my other variable is how much how much numbers I score in a test held immediately after the weekend. So marks in the test is my dependent variable, and time invested in watching TV is my independent variable. Then I collect some data from the few respondents, and on that I found the value of the coefficient of correlation as 0.831 minus 0.8. Here this 0 is not there, minus is not there, 0.831. So I found that there is strongly association. They are strongly associated that if I spend more time in watching TV, then my score goes down. So because there is negative association. If I spend more time in watching, then my score goes down. There is a negative association, and so negative association is there. So when I found the value of coefficient of determination R square, then I found that there are 69.1% variation in the mark test score is happened due to TV watching. So if any student perform less in the exam, for that 69% reason is watching TV. My independent variable is 69% responsible. Yes, there are some other factors are also there, and 31% approximately are the other factors also in the poor performance of the students. So related to every industry, when you develop a model to check that which factors are responsible or how much your independent variables are responsible for happening the variation in your dependent variable can be identified with the help of the coefficient of determination. So many times we also, as I already told, that residuals are also a necessary assumption, and you can use residual analysis to verify the assumptions related to the model. And this is the foremost assumptions that the residuals are non-correlated with predicted variable. Either you can check with the predicted variable or with the independent variable. So when I draw the plot, then from here I found that this dotted line is my x variable, independent variable. So I found that there is no relationship is there. But in this picture, I found that a non-linear type relationship is present there. Residuals plot a non-linear phenomena. So it's always necessary that your residuals are uncorrelated with independent variable when you are going to develop. If this condition is not satisfied, then your model is not accurate. So you must have to do graphical investigation there. So here also we find that there with respect to x, our error variance or residual variance is known constants. It's increased with the value of the x. So such type of issues we must observe when we develop a model, and if such type of phenomena we observe there, then we must have to relook our developed model to find the solution of our problems. If such type of phenomena is there, then also we must redesign our model, we must recheck our variables, we must recheck our data. And this is a healthy plot. If such type of phenomena is there, then we say that, okay, my residual analysis is good, my assumptions are fulfilled, and I can go with this model. So it's always recommended that just not stop with the development of the model. Further treatments, further post-mortem of your model is also necessary. With the help of that, we can check the goodness of your model. So these are some standard results that we require in the testing part of the developed regression model. Okay, from here we developed a model. Y equal to beta naught plus beta 1 plus x plus epsilon. This is a simple linear regression model. But what is the surety that this intercept term really exists in the population model? And what is the surety that this independent variable you have selected in the model is actually influenced or is actually related to your variable, dependent variable? So to decide that your more independent variables that you have checked, included in your study, really belong to the problem or not. So for that, or we can say that the relationship that is present in the sample results is also exist in the population or not. So for that also we have to perform the testing of the coefficients of your regression model, or testing of the statistics we also have to do. So for that we have to find the error of the estimates, we have to find the standard error of beta 1 or beta naught. And if you have multiple linear regression model, then you have to find the standard error of all the variables those are available in your model. And then finding the model, you just check that what is the amount of the standard error is there. If amount of standard error is less, then it's good. It means your results or your estimates are very reliable. But if the amount of standard error is large, then it means your estimates are not so accurate, not precise, and in that situation, it may be possible that the variable you are included in the model may or may not be contribute for the variation, contribute in the prediction of the dependent variable. So that also becomes necessary. So for that, we must have to make the testing regarding the parameters that you have taken in your study. You must have to develop the confidence interval, and then we have to verify these assumptions. First one is your model must be linear. All the values in your sample must be based on sampling. Residuals mean equal to 0. Residual variance must be constant. If it's not constant, means you cannot directly go with the standard regression model. You cannot apply your chi-square, t-test and f-test for the testing also. Covariance of the residuals with independent and dependent variables must be 0. In your sample, number of observations must be greater than the number of parameters. Generally, this kind of situation we face when we are dealing with the scenario of cancer patients and some critical illness type patients, when number of patients are very less, but number of variables under discussion are high. So there are such situations are also there, but we always take care that our number of observation must be greater than the number of parameters. If we cannot attain this, fulfill this situation, then we have to apply different approach. And there must be variation in the value of the independent variable. Specification of the model must be accurate and there must be no collinearity. So from this description, these assumptions, some key steps or key factors we identify, those we generally have to check. First one is multicollinearity. When you develop a model, then you must have to check multicollinearity. Multicollinearity means you have lot of independent variables, and from those independent variables, it happens that the value of the coefficient of correlation between those variables is very high. That is, you take the approximately similar kind of variables, and that resulted as a high R square value. Your model is overestimated there. So to avoid this assumption, we must have to check the multicollinearity. Due to multicollinearity, there is also other effect is there, that it may be possible that some variables which are influential on your dependent variable, but here in multicollinearity, our standard error becomes infinity. And when standard error becomes infinity, then your t calculated becomes 0. And in that situation, your hypothesis H0 get accepted, and it means you obtain the results that your R square value is very high, but your significant variables are very low. This is also a severe effect of the multicollinearity. So always check the assumption of multicollinearity in the development of the regression model. Second one is heteroscedasticity. If your variance of the residuals is not constant, then this heteroscedasticity problem arises, and when you must have to check it, otherwise you cannot apply the standard methods of regression development, of the testing or of the estimation on the data set if heteroscedasticity present in your data. And autocorrelation, the same issue is also arise in the autocorrelation. Estimation and hypothesis testing cannot be done if autocorrelation present in the data. Standard procedures of testing and estimation we cannot do. This autocorrelation type problem generally arise when we are dealing with time series data, and this heteroscedasticity problem is arise when we are dealing with our cross-sectional data, and this multicollinearity is a problem of the sample. On the population there is no problem of multicollinearity, as well as if there is simple regression model, then there is no problem of multicollinearity. So these are the importance, that is regression analysis help in making prediction and forecasting for business in near and long term. It supports business decision by providing necessary information related to dependent target and predictors. Regression analysis enable business in correcting error by doing proper analysis of results derived from decision, and business used regression analysis technique for identifying new opportunity in the market. These are the references from which these contents are taken, and these can be considered as there are a lot of case studies are also available in these books. These are two well-known books related to the regression models. So it's over from my side. Any question?
If anyone have a question, please raise the hand.
I think there is no doubt.
Yes, sir, it seems.
Yes, ma'am. So now we can.
I request the participant, please turn on your camera for the group photograph. Thank you very much. Vanshika, now you can continue. You can turn off your camera now.
Thank you for the enriching talk, sir. We are much obliged by the inputs and insights you have offered.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to everybody. Participant, thank you very much for joining this series of webinars, or I can say management development program. And I will send the recording and certificate to all of you shortly. Thanks again once.
Thank you.